Krystal, what are you taking a look at?
Well, guys, a movement is quietly sweeping the country, and it is corporate America's greatest fear. Starbucks workers at store after store are organizing, and some are even unionizing. It looks like exactly what Starbucks founder Howard Schultz and the rest of the execs feared when Buffalo stores started collecting union cards. As we closely followed here, Starbucks corporate threw everything they possibly could at stopping those stores from unionizing. They flew in execs, they closed stores, they engaged in some weird, creepy surveillance, they hired a bunch of new workers to try to dilute the pool, and they brought in Howard Schultz himself to tell some story about Nazis that apparently made everybody uncomfortable. Now, the reason they were so freaked out is because they feared that if unions gained even the tiniest toehold in their American stores, it could set off a type of domino effect. Well, these executives' worst nightmare has now become reality. Here's the backstory. So against all odds, 2 stores in Buffalo did vote to unionize. The success of those efforts basically required a perfect storm. New York is the most heavily unionized state in the country. Buffalo has a union tradition that also gives workers some history and some muscle memory and some experience with the concept of solidarity. The inspiring, though ultimately unsuccessful campaign of India Walton also injected some energy into the left in that city. That foundation met its moment with the increasing labor militancy that we've seen coming out of the COVID pandemic. Workers are taking power in every way that they can, whether it's through strikes, the Great Resignation, slowdowns, and also union drives. Well, today, friends, I can report that it appears the sparks from Buffalo have indeed lit a nationwide flame. Workers at no fewer than 15 other Starbucks stores from coast to coast have filed for their own union elections. More stores in Buffalo, along with one in Mesa, Arizona, will actually start voting this month. Now, instead of focusing all their efforts on just a handful of stores in one town, Starbucks bosses are left playing an impossible game of whack-a-mole, trying to stomp out efforts to unionize that are cropping up everywhere from Boston to Seattle to Nashville. Workers/organizers at many of these stores are explicit that Buffalo inspired them. One worker told the New York Times, "The Buffalo folks became superheroes. A lot of us spent so much time being afraid of retaliation, none of us could afford to lose our jobs or have our hours cut." It makes some sense that Starbucks would be the first of corporate America's service sector behemoths to unionize. After all, workers at Starbucks are only asked in the company to live up to the values that it claims to support. You can't say that you're a progressive company and engage in cringy PR stunts like their failed attempt at some national conversation on race, and then be shocked when your workers, who were attracted in part to work for you because they actually believed in your stated values, want those progressive values extended from PR bullshit to actual policy. So what does all of this mean, not just for Starbucks workers, but the national labor movement? Well, it's actually quite extraordinary. As one labor expert told the New York Times, in terms of creating a moment for unions, if you organized 100 stores, it would be the biggest thing that happened in 50 years. Even if the direct economic impact on Starbucks is minor, he added, the media attention and political pressure on the company could be enormous. It is not just that company, though. America, right now, in real time, is relearning labor history and union values. Unions and workers are shifting back to an offensive position after playing defense for literally decades. The gains that are made in these fights, they serve as a warning for other companies that if they don't treat their own workers with humanity, they could face their own successful union effort. If it can happen at Starbucks, it can happen anywhere. But that's not all. Zooming out to the big picture, we desperately need a massive cultural shift in how we think about real freedom and real power. A resurgent labor movement is the perfect vehicle for doing exactly that. We have got to shake off the Reagan era's exclusive obsession with individualism and personal responsibility and reclaim an identity as some sort of collective. We need a balance between the me and the us. Individual rights and identities, yes, but combined with some sort of collective aspirations and values. That ethos is what the entire labor movement is ultimately built on. You see, we've had 40 years of leaning exclusively into the individual without any concern for the collective, and that's been great for those with power and money. After all, individual atomized workers all searching for their bootstraps pose zero threat to them whatsoever. And it's easy to defund every government program devoted to the public good if there is no public good, only private interests. But we shouldn't be surprised whatsoever when the ignored, defunded, and derided collective ultimately falls apart. The effects of a collapse of the collective are everywhere right now. You can see them in an overclass that feels entitled, righteous even, when they put their own personal financial interests and ambitions over literally every other thing. You can see those effects in the massive decline in unionization that has led to plummeting wages and dehumanizing work conditions. You can see it in the degrading of public infrastructure such that we can't even do the basics of distributing rapid tests and persuading the public that highly effective vaccinations are in their best interest. You can see the effects in the kind of celebrity politics that would cast voters in the role of enabling politicians' personal aspirations rather than actually demanding those politicians act on behalf of the collective. You can see the effects in the ultimate collective action problem, that's dealing with the climate crisis on a society-wide level, rather than on the level of liberals making choices they can ostentatiously display as virtuous. Buying sustainable sushi and driving a Tesla alone are not, in fact, going to save the planet. All of these ills, and a whole lot more, stem from a society that has been intentionally pushed towards a sort of radical individualism. A radical individualism that makes it way too easy for cynical politicians to successfully deploy a divide-and-conquer strategy. The Starbucks domino effect is gaining steam as workers take it on themselves to try to rebalance the scales, to relearn the courage that solidarity requires and the power that it can ultimately confer. It's actually the greatest legacy of the Bernie campaign, the reintroduction of that basic principle. And his influence, by the way, is all over this new effort. One of the lead organizers in a new Starbucks union effort described her inspiration as such: "Bernie Sanders is my everything. I love him more than anything." Another said they had gained political organizing skills as part of the Bernie campaign. Starbucks has more than its fair share of Bernie bros piping his political message of solidarity straight into their workplaces. An old seed has been replanted in a new generation, and its fruit is just beginning to ripen. Now, Sagar and I believe 2022 could be the year of the worker. Let's hope that it sparks a new era with values that extend beyond the corporate bottom line. And you can see now why they spent so much money and effort trying to. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.